I don't remember anything about it. I woke up a month later in the Alfred, but only had that chance because of Mick and John who are here with us today.
We have with us the two paramedics who attended him, Mick Stevenson, John Taplin. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Morning, Neil. Oh, well, Neil, he's probably, John and I were reasonably convinced at the time that he was probably going to die. I think the tram driver had called the job in as though Ben was dead. His heart had stopped, he'd stopped breathing. He'd had broken ribs and he'd punctured one of his lungs had collapsed, and that had probably caused his heart to stop. He had a leg that was hanging over his head, his face was smashed up. He was in a terrible state anyway. Only took us a few minutes to get him going again, and then there was a bit of work to be done after that, obviously.
You got him going, what, defibrillator?
No, we once we started breathing for him and cut a hole in his chest and reinflated his lung with a tube through his chest wall. Things started to improve.
Ben, have they told you all this over the years, over the 10 years? They told you exactly what happened?
We've been through it a few times, and it's just truly amazing that that was when things were slipping away from me. Like the way I look at it, the door was closing, and the only reason it didn't close was because of Mick and John. How do
you feel when you hear about it now, 10 years on? How does it affect you?
Oh, I guess it's something that that factors into my daily life. It makes me walk in the world differently. I'm lucky to be walking, Neil. I had a 30% chance of independent life at one point. That's sort of the worst case scenario, but it's better than a 0% chance.
Ben's a particularly good one because of that ongoing involvement. Normally, I wouldn't get involved with patients after we've treated them and handed them over, mainly because of that emotional exposure when things don't work out so well. It can leave that internal scar within you of, even though you've done your best, you get to know everyone. Like we got to know Ben's parents very well in the intensive care, and if things hadn't worked out as well, that's the risk, I guess, that you feel of that involvement, but it's actually paid off in a very big way with lovely person and lovely family.
But why were you going to intensive care? I assume you've dropped. I thought normally you'd drop in the hospital. Doctors take over intensive care and you go off. If you're not being ramped, you go off somewhere else.
A follow-on up with it. Like, I guess, we're here today as, bit players in a big system. And we were lucky to be very close, only a couple of minutes away. And that's probably a very other big part in Ben surviving as well. We're very close to a major trauma centre. We had great surgeons.
You went to the Alfred?
Yes. Great staff in the ICU and everyone through it. It's a big team effort. But I guess that started that bit after midnight, and that was the start of the process. And to see it through now and to see Ben sitting here looking younger than ever.
I guess I was in intensive care for 24 days and asleep for most of it.
Yeah.
But for most of that time, like Mick said, my left side wasn't functioning, and then it started to come back.
When you say abruptly, Mick, you mean just quickly, just
overnight?
Overnight?
Over a very short period of time. I think it was more or less over a day or so. The hemiplegia resolved. So it was just amazing.
And there's no simple explanation?
No,
for that?
Not at all. I don't think. And
it doesn't happen, does it?
It didn't only surprise us, and it surprised the experts in intensive care and the trauma people at the Alfred. But as John said, we're very fortunate to go to one of the great trauma centres in the world, and Ben got great care as a consequence. So, we did a few things in the immediate sense to save his bacon, and the Alfred did a tremendous job of getting him to this point.
So what's the theory on why it resolved?
Oh, look, that's medicine, Neil. I mean, things happen that are unexplainable all the time.
You can't go through an experience like that, and with two men like this, and not think about them every day.
How old are your children?
Max is almost 5, and Audrey is 14 months.
Be an interesting thing to explain to them as they grow up, won't it? That they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these men and others, as you say.
Yeah, I describe Mick and John as modern day superheroes to the kids. They're not wearing capes today, but they probably left them at the door. But it's not just their medical skill. It was their emotional support. Through that journey, through intensive care. It's a pretty harrowing place for a lot of people.
What's the message out of all this from you?
I think the message is your life can change fundamentally. Tomorrow, make the most of it today. Make adjust your priorities to with that in mind.